So I went to ChatGPT and I said, ask question of CIA Director Burns about threats from ChatGPT. It said, Director Burns, what measures is the CIA taking to monitor and mitigate potential risks associated with the use of AI language models like ChatGPT? And how would you prevent AI language models not to be used by malicious actors to spread false information or influence public opinion? That's from my pal, ChatGPT.
Sure. I'm glad to give you an example, which I'm sure ChatGPT is very well aware of, and that is that, if you assume, say, an adversarial intelligence service where English is not the first language, and they're thinking about ways in which they could come up with compelling spear phishing messages, it's logical to use artificial intelligence of one kind or another to produce a message that can be pretty effective in spear phishing and therefore in taking advantage of vulnerabilities. And so what we're working on with colleagues across the intelligence community are ways of identifying, when that kind of spear phishing effort is being made using artificial intelligence by a foreign adversary.
Thank you.
Mr. Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here today. I've got a Wall Street Journal report I want to refer to here. It was published earlier this week detailing how unprepared, in their view, America is for an era of, quote, great power conflict with the likes of China and Russia. Here's a little bit of their analysis here. Quote, decades of ever bigger military budgets, including a 7% boost in spending this year, have improved the lethality of China's Air Force, missiles and submarines, and better training has created a more modern force from what was once a military of rural recruits. China is developing weapons and other capabilities to destroy an opponent's satellites, the Pentagon says, and its cyber hacking presents a threat to infrastructure. Further, a similar report from the Australian Strategic Policy Institute published findings around countries who are leaders in advanced technologies. 44 categories measured. Of those 44 categories, the United States led in 7. China led in the balance. I have that graph. I'd ask unanimous consent to enter into the record.
Objection.
China's research, the study said, quote, China's research strengths at the intersection of photonic sensors, quantum communication, advanced optical communications, in addition to post-quantum cryptography, could mean that intelligence communities, particularly the Five Eyes, could lose important capabilities and suffer from diminished situational awareness. China leads globally in photonic sensors, quantum communications, advanced optical communications, and post-quantum cryptography. Further states, taken together, these observations increase the risk of Chinese communications going dark to the efforts of Western intelligence services. This reduces the capacity to plan for contingencies in the event of hostilities and tensions, end quote. Let me ask you, panel, do you agree or disagree with those statements? And what is your agency or agencies, what are you doing to build, catch up, or stay ahead of China, considering those comments?
Congressman, if I might begin, I would agree that China has shrunk the gap in terms of where they were previously to where they are today. What is the National Security Agency doing? Several things. First of all, we play to our competitive advantages. We make code and break code better than anyone in the world. The second piece is that we look at partnerships. You mentioned the Five Eyes, but it's a broader set of partners that we have to bring in. Academic partners, engage with industry, engage with allies. This is what gives us strength that China will never have. And the last piece is the close association that we have as a combat support agency with the Department of Defense to identify vulnerabilities, mitigate them, and then ensure that we can advance from them.
Congressman, the Defense Intelligence Agency has recently reorganized with a China mission group that is specifically focused on this threat. We're continuing to engage our Five Eyes partners and other partners in the region on where we can work together to get after this threat in a collective way, and we will be expanding our footprint into the Indo-Pacific here very, very soon.
Excellent, thank you. Any further comments?
Sure. Just, we've made the same kind of important organizational changes because I think the two challenges that you just talked about, Congressman, are going to be central to our future as an intelligence service, meaning China and competition with the PRC, and then the revolution in technology, which is going to be the main arena for that competition. So what we've done is stepped up considerably our efforts to collect on all the areas that you described, stepped up our efforts working with partners in the U.S. government, but also foreign partners as well, to slow down PRC's efforts to try to, gain an advantage in those areas. And then just to underscore what General Nakasone said, what's crucial to all this is working with partners, both in the private sector as well as foreign partners as well.
Excellent. Let me flag one more issue for your attention. This is also a Wall Street Journal report. A remote corner of Taiwan confronts wartime scenario. That's the headline, Life with No Internet. And the gist of this is there's an island that had their internet cut off effectively, and this is typically a precursor for kinetic action. And the question I have is, with regard to Taiwan, do you think we have adequate redundancies to be able to address that threat should that situation arise?
I think I'll just say generally this is an issue that we're worrying about across all of partners, allies, et cetera, is to ensure that we have a way to help them. And I think we can, further discuss details.
So that's been the case in Ukraine, where obviously that was
Exactly.
diminished their capability for communications and so on, operational control. And that's why I asked the question, because I obviously have some concerns about addressing that. Do we have the adequate resources in place to mitigate that threat? Thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Crow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Russia has committed and continues to commit unspeakable war crimes against the Ukrainian people during the conduct of this war. The United States is not a signatory to the International Criminal Court, but Congress last year passed a law that made it very clear that we should provide intelligence and information related to these crimes to the International Criminal Court. And I will quote, in the appropriations bill that passed late last year, it allows exceptions allowing for assistance with, quote, investigations and prosecutions of foreign nationals related to the situation in Ukraine, including to support victims and witnesses, end quote. And of course, the discussion around that and the debate around that made it very clear that congressional intent was for the IC to provide that information to the ICC. It's my understanding that there's debate within the administration, more specifically that the Department of Defense is preventing that assistance and that information from being relayed to the ICC, including a principals meeting that occurred on February 3rd, where there was debate about that. So, Director Haynes, is it your understanding that current law passed by Congress mandates the ICC provide, or the United States, the IC provide this information to the ICC in furtherance of investigations of Russian war crimes?
Thank you, Congressman. We absolutely, and I don't think there's any debate that we should be providing support to the ICC on Russian war crimes, as a general matter. What we do is we provide intelligence that can be provided to the ICC through the arms of the U.S. government that typically work with the ICC. So the State Department's War Crimes Issues Office, we don't do that directly. And I think, it's really a question for them as to what exactly they're providing and whether or not.
So is it your understanding, Director, that there is information that is currently not being provided to the ICC that the intelligence community would like or otherwise would provide to the ICC, that the Department of Defense and this administration is not allowed to be provided?
No.
So there's no dispute about that within the administration?
We provide it to the policy arms. They provide it to the ICC. I don't actually know exactly what they have provided.
So more specifically then, is it your understanding that the Department of Defense is holding up the provision of information or intelligence to the ICC?
No.
That's not your understanding?
It's not my understanding.
Okay.
I think
Director Burns, do you have an understanding one way or the other on this?
No, same as Director Haynes on the question you asked, sir.
Okay. The next question is about the assistance generally to Ukraine. There's a lot of debate within Congress right now and with the administration about both the quantity and the quality of the military assistance to Ukraine. My understanding is that Russia does not have the capability of any major offensives or breakthroughs currently in Ukraine, that they've been degraded sufficiently. So, Director Burns, is that your understanding that in 2023 that the Russians couldn't conduct major offenses or have major strategic success in Ukraine?
Yes, sir. It's our judgment that the Russian military is capable of making incremental tactical gains, and they made some in the course of the offensive they've launched over the last 4 or 5 weeks in the Donbass in eastern Ukraine. But it is our collective assessment, I think, that for a whole variety of reasons that Director Haynes mentioned, munition shortages, morale problems, manpower problems, conflicts within their own military leadership, that they're unlikely to be able to make significant strategic breakthroughs or sustain them over the course of the rest of this year.
And is it your understanding that Vladimir Putin's strategy is to recapitalize the military, to consolidate support, and to rebuild his infrastructure so that he will be capable of making advances or strategic success within 2024 and 2025, that he's taking a longer-term view?
Yeah, I think Vladimir Putin is very much taking a longer-term view. I think he's doubling down in many respects right now. I believe he's convinced that he can make time work for him, that he can grind down the Ukrainians through this war of attrition, that he can wear down Western supporters of Ukraine. And he's convinced also, and has been for some time, the Ukraine matters more to him than to us. Therefore, the challenge, I think, is to puncture that view.
So given that, that decisions have to be made about relative risks and where risks lie, short-term risks versus long-term risks, would it be your best advice that we transition the nature of our support to look more towards hardening Ukraine and military modernization efforts that would look further out on the horizon than the shorter-term efforts?
Well, I avoid offering free policy advice in my current role these days. What I would say as a matter of intelligence assessment is that the next several months, the next 4, 5, 6 months are going to be crucial on the battlefield in Ukraine. I think any prospect for a serious negotiation, which President Putin, I do not believe, is ready for today, is going to depend on progress on the battlefield. Therefore, I think analytically, what's important is to provide all the support that we possibly can, which is exactly what the President and our Western allies are doing for the Ukrainians as they prepare for a significant offensive in the spring. And then at the same time, it's not really an either-or question, just as you said, Congressman, it's looking at the long-term security needs of Ukraine to help ensure a situation where Vladimir Putin's Russia is not going to try to mount another offensive or another invasion as they did at the beginning of last year.
Thank you. I yield back.
Ms. Stefanik.
Director Wray, 1 year ago at this very same hearing, I asked you about the deadliest vehicle crash in decades in my district in upstate New York, the 2018 Schoharie limo crash, instantly killing 20 people. Those families have never been the same, and my office has communicated with many of them. The owner of the illegally retrofitted limo was a longtime FBI informant with a rap sheet a mile long, and it was because of my question to you in this open hearing that the FBI was forced to open an internal review. Let me be clear, that review was in response to our congressional oversight. Since then, that was a year ago, the FBI has stonewalled and slow-walked our additional requests for updates on that review until, miraculously, just this week, before you knew you were going to appear here today, we received an email informing this committee and myself of the following. The internal review is now complete. The FBI will provide a briefing, and in connection with that briefing, we will make available the internal review with certain redactions. We'll coordinate with your staff regarding the in-camera review of the materials. The FBI is providing this briefing and materials with the understanding that the committee will not publicly disclose the non-public information contained therein. My expectation is that briefing will be this month. Do I have your commitment?
Yes.
I want to follow up. Can you commit to providing that briefing to those family members, immediate family members, the parents or spouses of those victims?
On that one, let me make sure I talk with our folks and circle back with you about what can be shared if there are any limitations. Obviously, we want to make sure that the victims and their families are appropriately informed, but I don't know yet what constraints there may be, so we will follow back up with you on that.
Yeah, they have not been appropriately informed, and it's only because of my work in congressional oversight that they're starting to have sunlight. I believe you're a parent, Chris Wray?
Yes, I am a parent.
I'm a new parent as well, and there is a set of parents that lost 3 daughters in that crash. So providing sunlight and transparency is important. I also want to note an important portion of the letter that was included. It says the FBI considers the provision of the internal review as fulfillment of the above referenced fence. I remind you that this committee, not the FBI, determines the level of transparency equating to full compliance with our constitutionally directed oversight role. Mr. Chairman, I want to submit this unclassified version of the letter for the record.
So ordered.
I also want to shift gears here regarding Judiciary Committee. I serve on the select subcommittee there, and this committee has made 50 different requests for information and documents concerning the operations and the actions of the FBI. And to date, the FBI has not complied with the Judiciary Committee's long outstanding requests for information and documents. The FBI is accountable to Congress and by extension the American people. Responding to this routine oversight is the bare minimum. And today, the FBI failed to send a witness to the Judiciary Committee hearing, saying that we had this hearing happening. Can you commit to sending a witness before the next Judiciary Committee subcommittee hearing on March 28th?
We're happy to work with you on making sure we
Can you
make
commit
information
to
available.
provide a witness?
We will, of course, make people available to the committee.
But you didn't make people available today. This is the base minimum. The agencies need to provide witnesses. Can I get a commitment? Yes, you will provide a witness.
We will work with you to make people available.
That's not a yes. So for the American people, you are having the FBI director refuse to provide a witness. Just say yes.
I'm not refusing to provide a witness. I want to be clear on that. I said we will work with you to make somebody available.
So great. So someone will be made available.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. That's all I wanted, a yes. Moving forward, do you believe the Hunter Biden laptop story is disinformation?
Well, I want to be careful about, there is an ongoing investigation that is relevant to that. So I have to be careful of what I can share on that here.
Do you believe the Hunter Biden laptop story is disinformation?
I don't think there's anything I can share on that in open setting.
Were you aware that the FBI personnel were in contact with Twitter regarding the Hunter Biden laptop story?
I don't believe FBI personnel were in contact with Twitter about the Hunter laptop story specifically. I think there were people in contact with Twitter about Russian disinformation efforts.
Of which the Hunter Biden laptop story was included, according to the FBI.
Well, I don't know exactly what you're looking at, but I'm happy to talk about what it is the FBI does and does not do with respect to social media companies.
Were you aware that the FBI had Hunter Biden's laptop since December of 2019?
I can't speak to exactly when we had a laptop available. There is, as you know, there is an ongoing investigation run by the U.S. Attorney out of Delaware from the prior administration that we continue to work very closely with.
And we have an ongoing investigation as well.
And our Baltimore field office is working very hard with that U.S. Attorney, and I expect them to pursue that case as far as it takes.
This stonewalling, Director Wray, the American people deserve answers, and this is unacceptable. Lastly, did you sign off on the Mar-a-Lago raid?
Well, first off, it was not a raid. It was an execution of a search warrant.
Did you sign off on the execution of the search warrant?
May I finish? Second, I don't sign off on individual search warrants in that case or in any other.
Did Attorney General Merrick Garland sign off to your awareness?
I can't speak to the Attorney General.
Was there dissent at senior levels of the FBI about the conducting of the search warrant?
I can't speak to internal discussions among the FBI or among the FBI and the Department of Justice.
Even though it's been reported in the Washington Post.
There are lots of things reported in the media.
I know, leaked from your agency. Leaked from your agency. Frequently it's reported in the Washington Post.
It may or may not be accurate.
It may or may not be accurate. With that, I yield back.
Thank you. Dr. Barrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In preparation of this briefing, staff gave me a number of questions to ask, and then lo and behold, yesterday we got an email from the Speaker and Leader Jeffries talking about a data breach at DC HealthLink that affects all. So we all got that. So let's talk about cybercrime, ransomware, et cetera. I'm sure we will get briefed on the data link in the future, but obviously cybercrime and ransomware is a major issue that we're dealing with and probably becoming much more frequent. Maybe this is a question for Director Haynes or Director Wray. I was prepared to ask about state actors, but also non-state actors. We can harden all of our devices, harden all of our offices, but there are lots of weak links out there. And I think a couple things. How do we work with the private sector to compel them to put in the resources to harden their cyber hygiene? Number two, how do and maybe this is for Director Wray or either one of you, for private sector companies, small and large ones, how do we compel them to make sure they're working with us, whether it's the IC or the broader community, to let us know when the ransomware occurs? And because for us to address this issue, we have to be aware of the issue, and we have to get that information. So to whoever's appropriate.
You're exactly right in one sense in particular that the private sector is the key to all of this. 85% of our critical infrastructure is in the hands of the private sector. It's probably a higher percentage of that when you look at our innovation, and an even higher percentage than that when you look at our PII. As you know, Congress passed, which I think is an important first step, a breach notification bill that will reach critical infrastructure in particular. I think there are things that can be done and should be done to strengthen that, to ensure that the information not only is flowing from a broader swath of the private sector, but also is flowing more quickly to us so that we can help as quickly as possible. And then I think overall part of it is raising cybersecurity awareness, which is part of what the really active engagement that we're trying to participate in, all of us, with the private sector is designed to accomplish.
If I might add, Congressman, it also means being able to leverage what we do as an intelligence community, operating outside the United States, understanding what adversaries are doing, being able to see their tradecraft, being able to share that tradecraft publicly. This is back to the partnership that is very close between NSA and FBI in terms of when we see certain things happening there, being able to provide that to the FBI as they talk to U.S. critical infrastructure companies in the United States. And we prioritize that work. That's very, very critical to us.
Great, thank you. Let me shift directions. A couple weeks ago, I had a chance to go on a bipartisan CODEL to Japan in my foreign affairs capacity, and clearly Japan is a geopolitical strategic ally of increasing importance. And we applaud the Kishida administration for really stepping up and understanding the new framework. They brought up in our meetings, obviously they're not at Five Eyes, but Five Eyes plus one, et cetera. But as we started to talk about their cyber hygiene, the fact that, some of their own laws don't allow them to do security clearances, et cetera. We want to have this relationship. We want to co-develop products, and, what can we do as Congress, and then, working with the administration they're very aware of their vulnerabilities on cyber, but it seems like it's moving very slow, and I'd be curious.
So, Congressman, I'd welcome to brief you and other members of the committee of what we're doing with Japan and other partners in the Pacific to, as you indicate, raise the bar for cybersecurity. I think this is instrumental to understanding where we need to go as both the intelligence community and select partners. We need to be able to share information with the great assurance that they can protect it. We need to be able to communicate them with the idea that what we're saying will not be monitored. These are all things, and I give the Japanese great credit. Over the past several years, they have done tremendous work. But we do need to focus on this very, very hard going forward.
Director Haynes or anyone?
Yeah, I'll just add to what General Nakasone said. I mean, this is an area of work that we have been engaged with Japan, with the Republic of Korea. We've actually have a trilat through which we work together on these kinds of issues. It's incredibly important, as you say, just to help all of us be better at cybersecurity, but then also to be able to work against, for example, North Korea, others that are engaging in activities that are attacking our systems.
And all I would add, Congressman, is that, we share both the admiration for what Prime Minister Kishida and the Japanese leadership is doing now in terms of their national security, which is hugely important to our shared interests. And I think we also applaud the Japanese leadership for understanding what we've sometimes learned the hard way in the United States. It's not as if, we have a monopoly on wisdom on this, but the importance of improving cybersecurity as well. And as an agency, we're working with our partners. I was last in Tokyo in December, I guess, talking about these issues, to do as much as we can to be supportive as the committed allies that we are.